I'm making this one out of some 3-ounce cowhide that I have. So I'm just gonna look at it and find an area big enough that's clear of any defects. Just bring the piece in. And to cut this, I'm just using a rotary cutter. Works great on leather.
The back is 6 5/8 inches wide and 8.5 inches long. The two side pouch pieces are 3.5 inches wide and 6 5/8 inches long. I'm staining this Field Notes case a walnut colored oil dye from Fibings. And staining leather products is a completely different animal than staining like wood. It takes several coats to get an even look. You'll notice at the very beginning it's very blotchy and streaky. Just keep going left to right or up and down, and just keep going in one direction and apply 3 to 4 coats, and you'll eventually get an even look. Even after you let the piece dry for 24 hours and you come back and it just doesn't look right, I mean, that's fine. Just use the wool dauber or whatever you're using to apply the stain and just apply another coat or two until you get the look that you're going for. I stained both sides of all 3 pieces using a wool dauber, and I waited 24 hours, came back and applied another coat just using the same wool dauber. You don't have to throw them away. You can reuse them if you're using the same colored dye. Before stitching these 2 side panels, and while I have easy access to them, I'm going to pre-finish one edge. I'll start by sanding the edge with 220 grit sandpaper until I get a consistent appearance on the whole edge. And next, I apply the gum tragacanth to the edge using an acid brush. And finally, I burnish the edge using this wooden burnisher.
And what it does is it puts a nice slick edge on the inside. It's smooth. And I'm going to do the same thing to this other side. The next step is to glue these 2 pieces down to the main piece. And I like to use this Eco-Weld water-based contact adhesive. So this is the burnished side. So I'm going to put some glue around the other 3 sides. I'm just going to use an acid brush. And I'm going to put it roughly 1/8 of an inch all the way around. And this is just going to hold it into place while I stitch it. I'm just going to lay this up here to use as a reference. I've let both sides tack up a little bit, so I'm going to line up these 3 edges. I'm going to leave the burnished side facing in, and I'm going to line up the edges. And then I'm going to let this set.
With the glue dried, I cut the 1/2 inch radius on both panels.
And if it's a little off like that is, don't worry about it. You can use the sandpaper to make it look better. So now that I have that side done, I'm going to flip it over and come down here to the bottom. Line 2 edges up. And another thing that you'll need to do is flush up these edges. I'm going to flip it over and do the same to this side.
With everything squared up, I'll take some 120 or 220 grit sandpaper and smooth all of the edges.
So what we're doing next is we got a pair of dividers set to 1/8 of an inch apart, and we're going to scribe a line all the way around the piece for the stitch groove. So with it set to 1/8 inch apart, just come inside of here into the piece of these flaps here and follow the edge around very carefully with a moderate amount of pressure here. For this operation, I'm using a 2-prong and a 4-prong diamond chisel. And when you're pulling the chisel out, try to keep your fingers down behind it because this is only glued, and I'm using a water-based glue, so it's not quite as strong as a cement, rubber cement. Then I'm around the curve I'm going to use the 2-prong. And I'll do the other side the exact same way. All right, it's time for some stitching, and I'm using a white 0.8 millimeter tiger thread. It's a waxed linen thread. I'll put a link in the description below on where you can pick this up. To figure out how much you need, they typically say go around the piece that you're going to stitch 4 times, and that's roughly the amount that you need. So I'm just going to take the thread, go around it 4 times. So I'm just going to start here and go around it. And so I'm going to take this amount of thread and multiply that 4 times.
I'm not knowledgeable enough to explain step by step how to saddle stitch, but there's a pretty awesome book that I will link to in the description below that will get you stitching in probably a half an hour. It's got awesome illustrations and it explains everything very well. But this part normally takes the longest out of the whole project of stitching. So I guess the more experience you get, the faster you'll stitch and the less time it takes. Just be prepared if you're new to leatherworking that this is the equivalent to pretty much sanding. It's the part you're not going to look forward to, and it's going to take the longest, but just, you know, stick in there and it'll be over before you know it. To flatten the stitching down, I just use this mallet and lightly tap it down. With everything stitched, I apply the gum tragacanth to the outside of the field notes case and I burnish it. I use carnauba cream to help protect the field notes case and to give it a little shine. I typically apply it with a cotton rag, but all I had around me was a paper towel, so I just applied it with the paper towel. Let it set, came back, and I buffed it off. The white stitching will absorb some of the walnut dye, and it'll turn a little brown. So just be prepared when you wax the surface that some of the dye will rub off on the white stitching. As you can see, the wax really makes it shine and it protects it from water. I did also apply the wax on the inside of the field notes case, the rough side, not under the flaps but in the center. Cool, well, I hope you guys like the different type of project, a little bit different than woodworking. I'm getting into leatherworking as well, so I thought I would throw together a video showing how to make a field notes case. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up button below. If you got a comment, let me know what you think. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.